invest a lot into the bike culture. The new bike garage underwater is
Exactly.
amazing. And the Netherlands
But that's now because they went through the difficult times, and now it has become an economic model. I mean, it's necessary economically to survive. But to get back to your question is, we are actually at the point where we're going maybe to leave this jungle situation, because as we're speaking, just a few hours ago, there was a press conference by Clément Beaune, the French Minister of Transportation, and he just announced that he does not want to forbid them. He wants to regulate it better, because one of the reasons Paris took this decision to organize this voting, yeah, exactly, that's the picture that of that meeting, where he said, I want to create an observatory, for example. I want knowledge, because when you're in jungle, you need to look what's happening. You need to collect data, and that's what he wants to do. He wants a communication campaign. He wants a longer life cycle. He wants these things to be very ecological. But the reason why Paris still wants to ask the Parisians, do you want to keep it, is that they had a lot of return on experience, because they started this in 2018, the first city actually, and it was a mess. It was a complete mess. They were all over the place. But in a very short period of time, under Christophe Najdovski at that time, he was the mayor, the deputy mayor, they managed to control it. And it was very impressive, because you see drop-off zones all over the place now. But despite these huge efforts, yeah, you still see them lying around sometimes. But that also applies to free-floating bicycles. So I think that's not the argument against it. It's we must be able to handle that. But Paris has another problem, and that is that it's the most densely populated city in Europe and the sixth most densely populated area in the world. So it's, the little spot, every little thing you do in public space, it creates a problem. So for Paris, it was really difficult to create it. So that's one of the questions, one of the reasons why they asked these questions. So I think that's why we need this conversation. So Sunday, 2 April, when we're going to have this referendum, it's going to be very, very interesting, because the decision that's going to be taken here will necessarily have consequences in the rest of the world, because Paris is a mobility laboratory, and people will look at it and they will ask us these same questions to talk about it.
Exactly. I was going to ask you actually about that, the effect that the vote in Paris might have to possibly Brussels, who is, I think, looking at what's happening in Paris before they start to do the implementation. But if you look at the northern countries, there they decided from early on to do it in a different way, by first doing a small pilot, learning from the pilot, doing some iterations, and also repeating the pilot again. And I think they were one of the first to have the dedicated parkings, like with physical parking infrastructure. I think Voi implemented that very early on, and they have been really at the forefront of that by doing short pilots and so on. Now, how come do you think in the northern countries they go about it in a different way than in the main Europe, where it's maybe chaotic is not the right term, but when you look at the different regions and different cities, it looks as it's still in the early days, as you said, as still the jungle phase. While in the northern countries, it's way more relaxed, way more strategic, way more. It's kind of like they have it figured out basically, and they're just looking at us and laughing. I don't know.
Well, for the scooters, they're also looking at what's happening in the rest of the world, because even though the Netherlands has taken the decision, it's because the bicycle lanes, they're already so full that they have to think twice or 3 or 4 times before they let a new category of vehicles enter these bicycle lanes, because even with the current diversity of bicycles, and I'm not only talking about electric bikes that go faster, but also bigger bikes, cargo bikes, and handicapped people have bikes. You have small bikes, big bikes. So there's a total transformation going on. And if you add this other category, which has different needs, that's the questions that you have to ask. But why it is different? Yeah. that they all have figured it out. I wouldn't say that. I think they've tried out different things, and in the Netherlands it was the bicycle situation, and that's why it's very nice for people from abroad and from France. Many people are going to the Netherlands to look around and to experience the situation. But for the scooter, it also depends on the development of the bicycle culture as it is now. I mean, I think that if there was many bicycles here as in the Netherlands, you wouldn't think about it so much. This famous need that you spoke about, this need, I think this exists because there's a problem. Julien Labaca, who's a consultant in mobility, I did an intervention with him last week, and he said, these scooters are kind of the paracetamol, the medication against headaches for mobility. Why? Because it doesn't really treat the cause. It's a short solution, because the cause is that you have a headache of being stuck in traffic. And so you need a robust way to get around, safe, being able to carry your stuff and even your children. And a scooter is not going to give you that. I actually see people on scooters wanting to carry stuff, and sometimes they hook them on to the scooters. It's because like Frédéric Héran, who's a French economist and city planner, an urbanist, he said it's a way of transportation that is not finalized yet. So that's why your argument is very good. Indeed, we should work on having the right norms, but we're not there yet. And you can see that in the way people use it now. It's and it's going very fast, because now something that makes people very mad is that you see sometimes two people on it. But last week I saw an article that one of the three providers in Paris, because there are three operators here, has invented a new technology that prevents you from being two on a scooter. And it's fantastic. You see that the technology is evolving very fast, and I think that one of the nice things about this discussion is that it gets us talking also about technology. I give you another example, because if you ask about the consequences, if you stop this, it will be much more difficult to regulate, for example, private scooters in terms of speed. Because with these scooter groups, that belong to companies, you can limit their speeds in certain areas because you can program them. It's more difficult to do that with private scooters. So that's a consequence. Another consequence will be that if we stop it, well, that can also mean that people, they need bikes. And there are 15,000 currently in Paris. So Paris will rapidly need to put in place 15 bicycles. And I think there's a very good reason to do so, because in 1 year from now, we have the Olympic Games. And what we believe as Bicycle Association is that these 600,000 people that will be in Paris every day on top of the usual load of people, well, 1/3 of them should be able to use a bicycle. So we need a lot more bicycles. And the good news is that Paris just recently decided to launch what they call the Olympiste. Piste is the French word for bicycle lane, and it's like the Olymp bicycle lane. It's a word game. French is a nice language. And so they're going to build specially dedicated bicycle lanes to the Olympic Games. So, it's really pushing the transformation of the city. So that's, so I think that this is the moment in time where we need to take these decisions, because if we don't say no now, well, then maybe there are going to be a lot during the Olympic Games, and then it will be more difficult to go backwards.